Hey everybody, Lawrence here with 30 Basics Marine coming at you another one. Well, if you saw the thumbnail, you know what this is. This is my fourth Dollar Tree Dollhouse build. Now, basically, I haven't done one of these for a while because for some reason these disappeared off the Dollar Tree shelves. But they seem to be back, different packaging, but it's the same dollhouse. So, I want to show you how I went from this to this. Pretty simple and it's a nice little cheap way to build off of, and it winds up looking pretty good. A nice little village house or whatever, but hey, it looks good. But before we get to it, I want to give a big thank you to my patrons. As always, you guys, I greatly appreciate your help every month, and with your help, it makes doing this so much more easier. So let's get to it. Now, for the first floor, I don't want to use the windows that are in, so I'm just going to pop them out real quick. And you can see they pop out super easy, so just a quick push and they're out. Because I'm not going to use them for later. Of course, now that I got all the windows popped out, I want to rough up the edges that are going to come in contact with each other, because I am going to super glue them together, and I want the super glue to have something to grip onto. So I'm just using a file, roughing up the edges here real quick. In the end, it's not going to matter because a whole bunch of stuff is going to cover it up and hold it together. But this way, before I actually add everything, this stuff will stick together. So it's just a bead of super glue everywhere that the two pieces are going to meet together, and I'll stick them together, and boom, done. I'll have a whole house instead of just this little half that comes from the Dollar Tree. Okay, I have a bunch of big gaping holes now that I would like to cover up. So I'm just going to do some measurements, use some food packaging card. Hey, it's recycling, so why not? But just measure to the size that I need, cut them up. And I got several holes I have to cover up, so I'm going to measure quite a few here. I got to cover up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, a lot of windows, and of course, where the doors are. But it's quite simple. Just kind of figure it out and slab on some hot glue, put the card in place, and boom, it's covered up and ready to have stuff added to it. Not a horribly difficult process. Of course, now I want to start making the door. I have a template that I made a long time ago. Here's a hint. If you make a template, save it. You may reuse it over and over again like I just did. But I'm just using the same card that I used to cover up the gaping holes. Trace a pattern. I got the back of the door. Of course, right now I'm going to slap on a bunch of PVA because I have a bunch of thin XPS that I've had for a while. And I use it for occasions like this. Glue it on, trim off the excess from the back. And now I'm using a plastic grout brush. Put in some texture lines. Use the pencil. Put in like individual plank lines. I've got the workings of a door right now. Of course, I need to get some banding. Now, this little thin piece of XPS is just a little bit too thick for making the banding. So I'm just doing what I can to thin it, squeeze it and thin it out. And then I'm going to cut some quick little thin bands. Again, it's not all that hard to make a nice looking door. Cut out the bands, cut out a little handle back, trim up the ends of the bands to a little point. Boom. Slap on some PVA. This is not a wholeheartedly difficult process. Just some XPS, a little bit of card, and you got a really nice looking door for whatever building or dungeon you want to use it on. Of course, now I got this cool looking little door. I might want to attach it to the building. So PVA, put it on where I want the door. Now my house has a door. Now I want to start working on the windows. I have these wooden slats from a folding fan that was sent to me by the dungeon matron a couple years ago. And the little patterns that don't make great grading for windows. So I'll cut them up to size. Now I want to start making the frames. I have a bunch of pre-textured timber framing, I use for like window frames and whatever I may need for timber. I made a bunch a long time ago, so I am still going through the supply. It's just a matter of cutting it and sizing it, getting the angles right. And if you can see, I cut the two pieces at the same time, and they'll fit together perfectly without much of a seam. Little spot of PVA with each where the angles are, and boom, I'm getting there to where the window frame is going to be. And I'm going to let that sit and dry for a while because it's PVA, not quite an instant thing. So, but I will finish this frame like right now. It's been a while and it's dried. And I'm using my cutting mat to get an idea, and I'm cutting them both of the pieces at the same time so the angles will match up properly, or I try to at least. It does require a little trimming, but as you can see, I got my window frame. I mean, keep it simple and just don't overcomplicate it with all the measuring stuff. Just kind of sit it over top of here, cut it, boom, done. Now that I got that done, it's just a matter of putting the lattice work or the actual window to the window frame. A little bit of PVA. Oop, that one broke. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I can just put a little extra PVA. It'll be fine. And I have windows. It's simple. It looks good, and it's really simple. Of course, I have this template for a substructure for a chimney, which I made a long time ago. Again, I made a template, I kept it, and I can continually reuse it, and I don't have to figure it out over and over again. Now I have the substructure for my chimney. And now I want to do a lot of dry fitting of the substructure, and it's too wide. So I'm going to slowly take off slivers off of each side until I get to the thickness of it. I could cut a bigger chunk off, but just in case I don't want to cut too much off at one shot. So it's just small slivers off of each side until I get where I want. I got it where I want. I mark off where it's going to stick, smear a bunch of hot glue on, and attach it. And I got the starts on my chimney. This is too tall, so I'll kind of mark it with a thumbnail there and then cut it to this length. Of course, now I'm going to be using my pre-made timber framing, or basically timber work. Anywhere that I think with a board or a piece of timber, basically some building supports. And I'm so glad I pre-made these a long, long time ago. I got a big box full of them, and now I can just pull them out of the box, glue them, trim them, and my effort for builds now is down to minimum. I even have some that are cut in half for thinner spots that a full-size one won't work. And a quick spot of hot glue, and boom, done. And the thing is, I made a lot of this pre-made stuff out of offcuts. You can make bricks out of offcuts. A lot of this timber framing. Just keep a supply of it, and the work you do will be cut down real quick. Whereas for the bottom layer right here, I kind of want to do a line of bricks. I was wondering if I should do 2 or 3, but when it was all said and done, I said, you know what, one will be enough. And I have this little tub of bricks that are actually half bricks, so it won't be sticking out so far that I was like, eh. So these half bricks will look like they belong or are actually built somewhat into the building. And of course, at some points you do have to trim them. And since I have the half bricks out, I want to actually do a door frame with the half bricks instead of the typical timber framing like I normally do with a lot of houses. Because why not? I mean, I wanted to go slightly different look, so the bricks work. And since I had the half bricks out, I was like, why not? It's just a matter of placing them, and sometimes you do have to trim them so they have more of a rounded shape going around the top of this round door. So it's a little bit of effort, but I think the end result is well worth it. And all in all, I have a lot of bricks, so why not use a brick door frame for once? I want to actually attach the windows now. And of course, I'm going to dry fit, just place them before I actually add glue to them. Just like, okay, yeah, this is where I want it. So again, PVA on the back of it, nice little coating, make sure it actually sticks. Place it where I want it. I like using PVA for stuff like in case you have to actually adjust it and move it slightly so it actually looks like it's supposed to go there. Because if you use hot glue, once you put it down, that's it. But with the PVA, you have a little bit of time to move it around. So definitely PVA with this time. Of course, now the chimney. I'm using full size bricks, and it's just one brick at a time. This method can be insanely tedious. There are texture rollers that you could use for this, and I have actually used them in the past. But I honestly prefer the look of individual bricks. It's just my personal preference. But yes, it is incredibly tedious and can be like, oh God, this is boring. But once you get into a groove, you kind of lose track of what, it's like you don't really realize it's tedious. In all honesty, I was actually talking to people on Discord while I was doing it, like I do with a lot of stuff. But if you could put on a movie or a video or anything you want. So there are ways to make the time fly. Even though, like I said, this can be incredibly tedious. One brick at a time, a little bit of hot glue, place a brick. A little bit of hot glue, place a brick. You'll get into a groove, and you'll have actually a really cool.
Now I have a bunch of shingles that I previously cut out using my Dungeons by Hand shingle jig on my Proxon. And I want to start adding them on. And it's just, I slice them pretty thin so they, they won't be like too fat and thick and look kind of comical. So I'll just hot glue them in place, and then each successive row I'll hot glue in place as well, but offset each successive row. And it does get smaller and smaller as it goes up, as you can see. And then I'll just use my Olfa knife and trim it down flat to the roof. And this way you'll actually have a nice shingle appearance. It's quick, it's simple, and hey, it's how I do it. So, but again, the shingle jig actually helps. And I have, once again, I have a bunch of these pre-cut. Now, I need to cover up all the seams and, where the shingles meet each other. So I have this thin XPS, which I keep on hand. And I'm just going to make a bunch of fascia boards and whatnot, so I can cover up the seams and make it look pretty. Obviously, you see, I textured it with my plastic grout brush, and now I'm just cutting out thin strips, which will actually come in handy because being that they're so thin, I can actually curl them, bend them, and do whatever shapes I need to. Like, say right here, these were cut a little wide because I needed to cover up that big empty space up top because I didn't put shingles there. I just wanted to put some boards, and it's a quick, easy, simple solution, and it works. And in the end, I think it will look good, so why not? But also, these corners where the edges meet, it looks kind of So I'm using these thin strips, covering up that look. So again, it's just to cover up what looks kind of yuck and just make it look pretty. I know it's kind of weird, but hey, it works. And I'll use them in any place that I need to cover up something I don't want seen. Of course, now it's peanut butter time! Thanks, Rick. I shall now forever call the stucco or texture paste peanut butter. But no, this is just a homemade texture paste, on the smooth variety. And I'm just putting it wherever I want there to be a stucco look. Now I'll wet this brush down, kind of give it a more smoother look to it. It takes a little bit to dry, but I think in the end it's worth it. While I'm waiting on the stucco to dry, I'm just going to Mod Podge all the foam. I mean, I could have waited, and but patience is a virtue for those that already have what they want. So I'm just going to go ahead and I mix a bottle of black paint in with the Mod Podge, and this will give the foam an extra hard coat. Now the Mod Podge is dry, I'm just going to use an airbrush and then primer the whole thing black. As you can see, some spots weren't Mod Podge, so I just want a consistent base color to start off of. So you could actually do this with a rattle can. I just have the airbrush and I'll use it. Of course, dark blue gray, my go-to for a base coat for all the stone cut, for all the brick and the stone color that I just like using. I'm trying to get as close to 100% as I can. Yeah, I know I'm missing some spots, but it's no big deal. Like in the cracks and crevices. It'll add to the thing there. Clown puke! Yes. I refer to this as clown puke. It's taking different colors, greens, reds, browns, whites, and giving each little brick a different color. Not every single brick, but enough to just make it a variety, just for some variation. So it looks more interesting in the end. As you can see, I did a bunch, not just the ones in the initial, but I like the way it looks. And now I'm doing the mid-tone gray and overbrush, which is going to cover up the clown puke to a degree and bring it down to a much more subtle look. And of course, with this mid-tone, I'm just doing a heavy overbrush, get like 75 to 85% coverage, leaving the deepest recesses alone. Of course, now I actually want to dry brush with my light gray. And again, you can also see that the clown puke step is going down even more subtle. Like I said, that whole deal with the clown puke, I know I keep saying I like that phrase, is just to make that really subtle in the end. Will you be able to see it easily? No, but you know it's there. Of course, now with all the wood areas, or at least the brown wood that I want to have, I'm going with my go-to burnt umber and just giving it, like I said, same as with the stone. I'm using a dark brown and trying to get as close to 100% coverage. I'm not being like 100% careful, but I am trying to keep it on to the wood areas. And again, using a mid-tone brown, basically a brown, and giving it an overbrush, leaving the deep 75% coverage, because I want to leave all the texture that I put into this foam to show up nice and bright, or whatever you want to call it. But again, this is just an overbrush, around 75% coverage, and starting to show off all that detail with the foam. Now this is where the detail really starts to pick out. I'm using a light brown or a tan. I think I'm using light mocha, and giving a quick dry brush and highlight everything. You know what? I've done brown, I've done green, I've done red. I haven't done blue shingles. So I decided to go with blue, you know. Yeah, it looks really bright right now, but 100% coverage for a dark blue. And then again, with an overbrush here, with a mid-tone blue, and just it showing off all the effort and texture that was put into the shingles. It's really starting to show now. Yeah, you could have left it just the one color blue, but we want this stuff to look pretty, so. And now, a dry brush with a light blue. I think it was a sky blue or something, I'm not sure, but just do it a quick dry brush with a light blue and really show off that texture. And the last thing that that'll get my like 3-tone process, or actually not even 3-tone, but I want to paint up all the stucco work. And I'm using my standard desert colors, but I started off with the mid-tone for my desert colors and going with 100% coverage. Anywhere that has stucco, that's what color I'm going with. And I'm using a desert sand color here, just to give a quick overbrush and just make that stucco look good, honestly. Got to be careful trying to keep, just to the stucco areas, and don't want to like hit the wood or anything else. So, but hey, with a little care, it's really not that difficult. But again, anywhere that has the stucco is getting this desert sand color, which will greatly change soon. And of course, all the metallic areas, I want to go with copper. It's my go-to. It's like, kind of copper or bronze, whatever you want it to look like. This is fantasy. I can use whatever color I want. But I'm trying to be really careful here, though not with 100% coverage, the window there, but oh, I did make some mistakes that I had to do touch-ups on later, but no big deal. All the different windows are getting painted. The straps on the door backing handle is going to get this color, and even the little tiny windows on the second floor is going to get this color too. So I wanted a copper bronze color, so I used copper. Okay, now let's make this stuff look nasty. I have a dark brown homemade wash here, and I'm just going to slop it all over everything. This will get into all the cracks and crevices and just make everything and give it a bit of a dingy, dirty look. Because I don't like bright, pretty, and brand new, so I wanted to give it a black look. Of course, now that the wash is dry, I need to bring up some of the highlights again. So all the different things, I'm going with the last highlight color, and I'm using a soft bristle brush and giving them a really light dry brush just to make all the details pop. And it's like, yes, this looks good. So right now, I'm getting all the bricks and getting them. And of course, now I'm going to work on all the wood areas with the light brown that I used. And you can see I'm using a makeup brush. I mean, makeup brushes make great dry brushes, especially for terrain. There's no need to use like an expensive, $30 dry brush from whatever manufacturer. Go to Dollar Tree and go to the dollar store or even on the Amazon or wherever and just buy some cheap makeup brushes. They work. But then I also I'm going to give a really light dry brush to highlight everything and make it pop on the shingles as well because I want it to look pretty. Hey, I like pretty, okay? But no, this is just a quick dry. But you need to make it pop. It doesn't have. I'm going for tabletop quality. I want it to look really good from 3 feet away. Do I want it to look good from right in front of my eyeballs? No. 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 I just need it to look good on the table. And that's exactly what I'm going for here. And of course, the same with everything else. The stucco is going to get the same treatment. I'm using some light brown color or sandy color. I don't know. But just give it a quick dry brush and make it pop. Of course, I want to make the copper or the bronze, give it a patina look. You saw the product from Citadel. Every manufacturer, Army Painter, Vallejo, whoever, they pretty much all make the same product. It just gives a green patina look to any copper or brass. Anything you want to have that like aged green copper look to it. It's just a matter of brushing it on, wiping some off, and letting it dry in, and it gets a really cool effect, so I'm doing it. And of course, it's an old chimney. It's got to have some soot marks around the top here. So I'm just using homemade pigment powder, black, and just keep brushing it on until it gets to the point where I like it. Now, I don't show it on camera, but after I do all the pigment powders, I spray it with some isopropyl alcohol to lock it in place so it doesn't rub off. But anywhere else, I'm using a dark brown pigment powder. Again, homemade. Anywhere I think, dirt might collect, and just give it a little bit of older look to it. Like I said, I don't do brand new and pretty. I do old and nasty. Cracks, crevices, anywhere you can put this stuff. All right. Moss time. There were a few places where I screwed up that I needed to clean, that I needed to cover up, and I like putting moss on. It gives a little bit of gives an old building character, I think. So I'm just my homemade moss paste, brush it on wherever I want, and just keep going till. Don't want to overdo it unless you're going for a really old and nasty looking building. But hey, I'm using very selective places and corners where moisture might dry, or also like in some places I'm covering up mistakes. Hey, moss paste. It's great for covering up screw-ups. But again, and now I'm going to use some fine yellow flocking sprinkled on as a highlight, just so it's not like a solid wad of green, and it just makes it pop a little bit more. Of course, the very last step, which I almost forgot, the door handle. Yeah, it's just a little piece of jewelry that I put on. From this dollhouse at the Dollar Tree to this. I mean, come on. I've done this a couple times, and I'm always happy with the result. I haven't done one for quite a while because I said the Dollar Tree stopped carrying them for a while, but now they're back on. I saw that they're back on the shelves, so I got no problem doing this. So, if you want to get a couple of these and you're in the States, go to the Dollar Tree and get them. They're $1.75 now, but you need two of them to build a building, but they do wind up looking great.
Everybody, if you watch this far, it means you watch the end. And as always, I can't thank you enough. If you like the video, hit the thumbs up. If you want to see more, click subscribe. You know, all the YouTube crap. Now, would you actually like a chance to get a hold of this very house for yourself? Well, here's how. Every year, and this will be the 4th year in a row, the Dungeon Minister runs Clericon. Okay, I'm going to read this so I don't mess anything up. Clericon 2026 is an intimate, old-school tabletop role-playing game, TTRPG, convention hosted by YouTube's The Dungeon Minister. It features classic D&D, Dungeon Crawl Classics, Call of Cthulhu, and Morkborg, plus many other games. The convention runs from October 23rd to October 25th, 2026, and is located in Glen Williams, Ontario, Canada. So, if you guys would like to go and get a chance to actually get a hold of this build, because I'm sending this plus many other builds of mine. He's going to give them away as prizes, auction items, whatever he determines to do with them. But many of these builds will be up at Clericon 2026. So if you want a chance to get a hold of something I actually built, you got to go. But I will put a link down in the description. And guys, go. Great. It's great fun. But if you can't actually attend in person, they do have online games. So quick, hop on, register, and try and get a table. But again, guys, simple builds like this, it doesn't take a whole lot, and you can use cheap materials, and it'll look good on the table. Just remember, guys, whenever you're building your terrain like this, the only person you got to worry about is you, because it's your terrain.